Hello, everybody. Welcome back to today's edition of Conversations from the Trenches. Today, we are having a conversation with a difference. And I call this a conversation with a difference because we are being intentionally different. We've had almost 25 to 26 episodes already. And each of those episodes dealt with some aspect of womaning it, as I call it, in the mainstream. We've talked about careers, we've talked about leadership, we've talked about burnouts, we've talked about well being, we've talked about workscapes, we've talked about work life balance. But the one thing that has been missing from this conversation, from this whole show, has been diversity. And those of you who know me, you will know very well that my motto for the work I do, for everything that we do with Dragonflies and the work that I do with personal branding, is that we have to be inclusive. That the only way forward for all of us is together onward. And I am so happy that today we are going to have a conversation with somebody I have been following for quite a while on LinkedIn, somebody who inspires me in her little ways and who makes me smile. I have to say, sometimes she makes me smile because there is just so much of sunshine around her, this aura of sunshine around her. Please join me in welcoming Dhanya Ravi. Dhanya, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Rekha. Thank you so much for having me as a part of your series. As I said earlier, I'm someone who actually love reading your post on LinkedIn. So I think we both are complementing each other in some way or the other, I would say. And yeah, happy Holi, everyone.
Yeah, happy Holi, everybody. Thank you for reminding me about that, Dhanya, although we started off saying it's Holi. So this is a conversation with a difference because today we are going to be talking about deep inclusion. We are moving deeper into the trenches to bring in voices that are normally not heard in the mainstream. Now, Dhanya is a celebrity in her own right. Dhanya, she's known as the glass woman of India. She has a congenital rare disease known as Osteogenesis Imperfecta or the Brittle Bones Disease. Now, Dhanya is a disability evangelist who advocates fiercely for deep inclusion. She's a TEDx speaker, she's a motivational speaker, and more than anything else, she's a writer. Dhanya has a lot of credentials and achievements to her name, but if I had to go into all of that, I don't even think I can do justice to it. And very honestly, today the conversation is really about Dhanya as a person, Dhanya's journey with a rare disease. And this is an opportunity for all of us to really listen with our hearts, with our souls, to understand what is different. This conversation is different because for once, I hope all of us are going to really listen with our hearts. And every time we look at somebody who's different from us, I hope we can, I hope we take away a little bit of openness and wisdom that will allow us to embrace somebody who's different with curiosity and compassion and create space for them. So before we start anything else, Dhanya, would you like to introduce yourself or say a little bit more about yourself to the viewers?
I'm very bad at introducing about myself. I just follow the light of my life and nothing beyond that. Somehow, yeah, I'm born on this beautiful planet to a wonderful family. My roots are from Kerala and most of my days are in Bangalore.
Mm-hmm.
Being homeschooled
Mm-hmm.
and later open university job, and beside that I took my social space
Mm-hmm.
because of the stigmas or what I went through. It actually encouraged me to be part of the community. And as you rightly said on the introduction, my own small way I've been doing things, and I'm very happy with whatever I am today. And yeah, currently I work as a specialist for Enable India. I,
Mm-hmm.
along with my friends, run an in-house NGO called Asman Foundation Trust, and this keeps me going for now.
Thank you so much, Dhanya. Dhanya, before we start, like before we even get into the conversation about your journey, your experiences, help us understand what osteogenesis imperfecta is. I imagine it must be pretty difficult for a lot of people to even roll off their tongues, but can you help us understand what it is and what your journey with the brittle bones disease has been like?
Osteogenesis imperfecta, in one word, I would say it's my lifelong companion. And
Mm-hmm.
now, coming to a very theoretical aspect, yeah, it's commonly known as brittle bone disease. So, the term osteogenesis imperfecta means imperfect bone formation. And I'm born with this human bone fractures, and the character of this condition is that until teenage, bones are extremely brittle, and it's basically due to the lack of type 1 collagen, something that I don't have and you own it.
Mm-hmm.
And after teenage, yeah, your bones become a bit more stronger, and then it's little more easier to manage our lifestyle and things like that. But by then, I would say it has given this deformed formation, and this is my divine design now because of that. So, my journey as a person with I would say whatever I am today, it is because of OI. So, should I say, was it good or bad? But
Mm-hmm.
whatever the experience what I have, again on the other side it is again because of OI, right? So that is a good and bad. I see there's a purpose, there's a beautifulness, there's a struggle, there is a love, there is a pain. A lot of things I see as OI. Growing up wasn't easy. I'm so sure you would be agreeing to this statement that as a woman in our country itself, is life is not that easy. So as
Yeah,
a person with disability in this gender is
yeah,
even never easier.
yeah.
And yeah, it has its own sets of challenges
Mm.
and opportunities, I would say.
Mm.
Because I would say what connected me to you today is because of
Yeah,
my condition, right? So that is something beautiful. And on the other side, there's a lot of sufferings also what I went through. So
yeah,
in one word, it's been a journey. I don't know how do I judge it properly because I'm very emotional when it comes to OI as
yeah,
such.
yeah.
But on a very space of awareness, I would say it's a group of genetic disorders, and yeah. But right now, there are chances of diagnosing the condition in the early pregnancy stages, whereas
Mm.
during my stage, when my mother
Mm.
was conceived, it was very difficult to
Mm.
understand. Almost 56 days for my
Mm.
parents as well as the doctors to understand why I was continuously crying as a baby, or why my legs are swollen because of, and
Mm.
it took a lot of time for them to actually understand what it is. And further then, being born in a traditional family and pretty orthodox, and it's a journey for them as my parents also, because
Yeah,
no one really wished to have a person with disability as their daughter, but they took that courageous step to accept me.
yeah,
They helped me on my growing up, and
yeah.
as a father, my father was committed in giving me the best of treatment available.
Mm.
Unfortunately, it's an incurable condition, but yet he did the best of what he can. And I
Mm.
did get some wonderful doctors who actually worked on myself a lot. And
Mm.
yeah, so only right now as a woman with disability, as an OI, again, which is something which I'm experiencing, of all these deformed bones and dealing with it. And it's not easy, but yet, yeah, I'm able to manage myself. Or maybe I learned to manage.
Yeah. I think we're always more resilient than we know or think ourselves to be, aren't we? And tell us a little bit more about rare diseases, because it's one of my contentions with labels and phrases is there are so many stories and so much of minor detailing that gets lost in the label. So we all know of the words like rare diseases and chronic diseases, but we don't really know what it means in the context of, like you just mentioned, nobody knew why you were crying for 56 days continuously, right? Now that's unimaginable for any parent who has a child who does not have that condition, right? So what is the implication? What are rare diseases? What is the implication of it? Can you just give us a quick, understanding of it?
Rare diseases is, that's where I kind of be vulnerable in the society,
Mm,
because I really say that most of us these days doesn't know what rare disease is,
yeah.
and there is about 7,000 rare diseases in our country,
Mm,
whereas only around 400 to 500 is actually database available, as in the
mm,
rest of it is like totally either
mm,
ignored or never understood, or
mm,
maybe not ready to share to the outside world. So, and the saddest part is that most of those conditions are incurable, and it's we all tend to manage to live with it.
mm,
And the only reason of how to deal with rare disease, I would say, is about understanding in the early pregnancy stage.
mm,
So that's where I really hope that if any woman or as a couple, if they take the initiative in doing a rare disease test during the early
yeah.
pregnancy or even before that, that's where we kind of know how to what our DNA is, and how what kind of child we could have, and how do we can deal better with it. So
Yeah.
in our country we do not have a rare disease cell. So if we like how we have a cardiac specialist or a
Yeah.
diabetic doctor, anything, when we
Yeah.
have a genetic cell as such, it's an information that every one of us, where we
Yes.
can just know and grasp, hey, what is osteogenesis imperfecta? Like, I still remember, like, when I was born with this condition, my parents never knew what it is, but
Yeah.
maybe the young parents these days, at least we tend to check in Google, okay, what's osteogenesis imperfecta.
Yes.
There is a lot of progression, but
Yeah.
even in terms of medicine, I would say the kind of cost is even more expensive. Like
Prohibitive. Yeah.
that's another pricing format that's happening there. And,
Yeah.
we are nowadays seeing, when we open a YouTube, we see a lot of keto and ads, crowdfunding platforms, and most of them are from rare diseases. And imagine the cost that they quote there. It's all
Yeah.
in pros and ads together, which a
Yeah.
middle class family can never afford to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
I.
feel
Mm,
that's about rare disease. I'm not taking too much
yeah.
into the medical aspect, but
Yeah.
rather we, the person, take the ownership in terms of understanding and working on it. It's a space of where we kind of bring more healthier child to this world.
Yeah, we have somebody who has weighed in, Prasanta. Prasanta had a daughter who had a rare disease, and she recently passed on. She was a beautiful soul, Ramya. Prasanta says rare disease definition according to WHO, I think, is when one in how many? 30, sorry, 300,000 have it, then that disease is considered rare. Ramya's was 1 in 2 million.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So, something that strikes me is we do have, you said 7,000 rare diseases in our country, right? And that means we have a site, even globally, if you look at the stats, right? The population that has it is not that small when you put it all together, when we, look at the category rare diseases. However, for the average person, there's such limited awareness of what rare diseases are, or more than that, what is the life of a person with a rare disease like, right? And I highlight this point because, I want to share this. One of my closest friends in school had a rare disease. And I do remember she had to be homeschooled at one stage. And, there was such an appalling lack of awareness of what it means. And therefore, there was not only the internal churn, but as well as challenges that you had to face on the outside, just for the understanding of the people who are listening. Okay, because I think a lot of people look at you. I think we just spoke about it before we came on, that a lot of people look at you and think, oh my gosh, she's so inspirational, she's so powerful, she's so brave, etc. But we are not always that. There are sides to us when things are not easy. Even getting by on a day-to-day basis in a world that's not designed for our differentness can be such a challenge. Just for the understanding of the average person who probably doesn't know anything about living with a rare disease, please help us understand, what does it mean to live with a rare disease, in your case, OI, on an everyday basis?
One simple exercise for the listeners, what I would say is just sit on the chair, just like how you're sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Just sit on the chair. You have a computer with you have a phone with you, and hi, imagine from your neck till your leg toe.
Yeah.
It's something you cannot move. It's immobile, and
Mm.
you need a support to change your dress, to go to the washroom, to even help you if you have if something is fallen down on the floor, you need someone's
Yeah.
help to take it, or maybe
Yeah.
if you would like to have a scratch on your back, you need
Yeah.
someone's help.
Yeah.
Just but you are privileged to have a laptop, you have a mobile, you have a music, you have a Netflix account, everything is there, and
Right.
live at the space on just 7 days in one single room. Tell me how optimistic can you be in your journey. This is a simple, exercise I would say for each person to understand what it means to live with a rare disease or with any sort of disability. It's
Yeah.
never easy. I still what I know what like the kind of tagging that you said, brave, courageous, or whatever you call it. It is not something that came overnight. Like as a child, I've been, you know, persons with disability are vulnerable, and as a
Yes.
child, uh, it's even more vulnerable, where
Yes.
we are in a space of understanding who would hold our journey. But rather,
Yes.
I was a person who have always got questioned by people on how will I lead my journey. So coming
Yeah.
up, growing up in such a way where
Mm.
hardly we have some support, it wasn't easy. So
Yeah.
coming up from that single cot bed in my room for almost till 20 years, and then taking action for yourself, working on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
even now I'm not succeeded in whatever way you say. But as I said to you in our earlier conversation, that I'm just following the light of my life.
Yeah. So Prasanta says it's often unimaginable, but you do it. That makes you brave.
Thanks, Rashida. Thank you so much. And
So
I understand as a special parent how your journey also could have been.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you mentioned something when you gave that example of being in your chair and not having the mobility, right? You said, how can you be optimistic day after day? So what fuels you day after day?
So that's where I like to touch upon maybe my condition or maybe my circumstances or the environment was stigmatized, but I really believe there's nothing as you become inspired by someone or anything. It's
No.
always the willingness that happens within us. One, right? Precisely that first. And second thing, I was so fortunate to have met people who kind
Yeah.
of offered me so much of love,
Mm.
friendship, and I was so blessed in that way. So maybe
Yeah.
what keeps my day going is always my own set of beautiful friends. They keeps me going. I would say it's not like as I said, I have faced down a different life a few years, and now whatever joy I'm going through, it is because of the choices of certain people who done in my journey, who actually wish to see my growth or trying to be with me. So this keeps me going, and I think any person what makes them stronger or successful is the kind of people you have in that journey,
Yeah.
from our parents, from our family, to the
Yeah.
friendship that we own. This
Mm.
actually brings us to where we are, or maybe it helps us to sharpen our skills or create our own identity. Of course, there is a set of things that we as a person need to do. If I, as a person, did not work on myself,
Yeah.
I'm sure the world wouldn't have known me, or maybe the kind of few people who was part of my life will not be there. So there
Yeah.
are some few things that even I worked on myself. So it's the
Yeah.
people, I would say.
Yeah. I mentioned that one of my closest friends, and to date, I still consider her one of my closest friends, who had a rare disease. In a recent conversation which we had, she mentioned the exact same thing. She said it was not the community, it was that whole journey of internally coming to terms and accepting, and what made it a little bit easier was kindness from few people around, and that is what gave her the fuel. But I do remember my friend did have to deal with a lot of bias, which stemmed from a lot of ignorance and an unwillingness to keep an open mind. You also mentioned being stigmatized, right? If you're open to sharing, what kind of biases have you come across?
Like I would say everything. I mean, there's anything.
Hmm.
I would say, when we call abuse or bias, or it has many things. It's just not one thing. So I, as a person, I would say, as I think earlierly mentioned, people, when we have certain differences in us, we are we are being mapped by the people around us that, oh,
Yeah.
Danya, you are like this, you are
Yeah.
supposed to be like that. And it's not that I need to climb a tree, but
Yeah.
maybe I would just hope to go near a park or something. But
Yeah.
even for that, people might say, no, you are meant to be this way. So
Yeah.
people are actually mapping my journey, like this is
Yeah.
what it was. So I would say bias in all ways. It comes from relationship, it comes from
Hmm.
when education, it
Yeah.
comes from workplace, everything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not, in everything. I would say I have gone through it, and
Yeah.
yeah, that maybe that actually made me stronger as a person. When we kind of go through certain experiences that
Yeah.
actually makes us more stronger. So I would say I'm thankful to those experiences where I learned a lot of things, how to trust
Yeah.
people, whom to trust, whom not to trust, a lot of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Prasanta says, love that expression, others mapping my journey. You're definitely striking a chord here. Prasanta, thank you so much for joining us. This means a lot to both of us that you're here, particularly in light of the journey you've had. We're very grateful you're here. And, you know, I don't even know if my next question makes sense or not, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What kind of barriers to inclusion have you observed and experienced, and you continue to, more than anything else, you continue to in your everyday life?
I would say gender equality, first thing. I would
Mm-hmm.
say gender equality, and secondly, I would say education.
Hmm.
That's one thing which I still find. Like, I would say, as a person with disability, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't complete my 10th standard while I was 16 years. I didn't
Hmm.
complete my plus 2 or PUC on my 18 year, or I
Hmm.
didn't take a degree when I was 22 or 23 years. So,
Hmm.
eventually my life started better. I would say, like when I was 25 or 26. That's when my life really started. So I would say
Hmm.
these are like some of the barriers which actually put down. Like if if our society has been cultured in a way where I, as a person with disability, can be nurtured among the others,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of inclusion involved in it, I would have definitely completed my 10th and I'm
Yes.
16, plus
Yes.
2 and
Yes.
18, and
Yes.
23 where I have my first paycheck. So this
Yeah.
thing did not happen that way. So everything eventually was a space where I created opportunities. I
Yeah.
went and sat on the table and told, this is me and this is what I can do, and how can
Yes.
we together can work on this. So this all actually stated on a very late of mine. So I would
Yeah.
say, and gender, like when I'm a person who's dependent on my mobility, the society, what they think, my family would say, what it means, and sometimes it's even more funnier when I go out with one of my friend who's on a female gender based itself. The society will come and ask, hey, are you running a palliative care, or are you both sisters, or
Mm.
like a lot of questions that
Yeah.
I do agree that we are we are progressing no matter, because
Yeah.
years back I've seen people staring at me as an alien for
Yeah.
what with my looks and things, but
Yeah.
now at least that is not there. Now it's
Mm.
been more funnier, where I could see people quoting about my beauty, or maybe quoting about some marriage or some relationship. I could see a lot of quotes that happen that way. So I feel things are progressing, but
Yeah.
yet things are getting weird on, that people actually think, like
Mm.
I said, when we go out, like we are just good friends, and we've been heard by people, what do we do, and how it is. Or if my
Yeah.
friends if my friends show me some love and concern or care on me, it thinks as if something, they think, oh wow, or maybe they come back and say something else. So
Yeah.
we are tend to have a lot of privacy on our own place. We
Yeah.
find it very difficult to be on the open space just because of this. So
Yeah.
barriers, yes, I would say, coming from workplace, education place, and gender
Mm.
based. These are the barriers in terms of inclusion. So I would say it's very important to set a normalcy on this place. Like
Yeah.
that's where we kind of mark a more inclusive place.
Yeah, so we're going to come to inclusion in a moment. Okay, we're going to come to inclusion in a moment. But before we go down there, I want to ask you something that's an experience I have a lot of times, right? So I find that the word disability tends to draw mixed reactions. And this is something that I ask almost every person from the community that I meet, every time, everyone I interact with. I ask them this question because I'm very curious to know where you stand on this. And there's one viewpoint which, where the thought process is we have to be politically correct, and the language has to be, it has to be, it should be a certain way, and the preferred choice of words is differently abled. I have also come across many disability evangelists and activists who have said that no, let's call things as it is. Let's not hide behind very nice words like differently abled. Let's really focus on the narrative that's below the label and really work on inclusion, because just having a nice label is not going to change things. And so I want to ask you, what's your take on it? How important is the language?
It's a very sensitive, space that
Yeah.
no, I would say language plays a great role. See,
Mm.
as you said, we kind of had this conversation a couple of months back. Like when a person comes back and tell you, "Hey, I want to die, and I'm going to end my life," and you
Yeah.
say, "You know what? Things get better. Trust me. Just give 5 hours time. Things get better." There's a language that you use which actually gave hope to the other person, right?
Yeah.
Whether things get better or not, you stopped me from something. So
Yeah.
language plays a huge role. Like I am personally a person coming from that same point of group of people who say, let's disability is always a disability. Like I
Mm.
said, you call me a glass woman of India or any woman, I cannot take a pen that has fallen down on the floor sitting on my wheelchair. I need to
Yeah.
call my mother and
Yeah.
request her to take this pen for me. Whether Divyang or anything doesn't make any difference. But
Yeah.
it actually created a hope in people's mind,
Yeah.
especially in our country. I would say that when we kind of said disability or handicap, it was a very negative quotient for
Yes.
them. And
Yeah.
when we actually quoted Divya, they started to see the child as something beautiful. So we
Mm.
actually created a positive environment,
Mm.
to that family, or we gave I know, as I say, it gave a lot of happiness to that one moment, and the thought pattern itself started to change. So
mm,
it's very important to acknowledge certain policies and stick with certain things. But ultimately, yes, it is for me. I would say uh, one simple thing. When I am using the same example because it'll be easier for people to connect.
yeah,
I
yeah,
said, if a pen has fallen down, if my mother come back and say, "Oh, Danya, you're like irritating me every time you put something down. You're like annoying," and
yeah,
that's a space where you actually it's my helpless, but it
mm,
tends to happen, right?
mm,
But if my father comes and say, "Oh, it's fine, I can help you because this
yeah,
is something I can and you cannot," and we're complementing each other. And there are
yes,
things that which he cannot do, that he comes and tell me, "Hey, can you do this for me?" I'm
yeah,
complimenting him, right? So that's
yeah.
where I like to term things as such, and it's about complementing each other. On I don't think disability again is something. I mean, I have it physically, you can see that I am a person. But I think everyone on the other side also have some set of disability. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe it is not seen, and maybe for some it is seen. So it is about complementing each other.
No, I completely agree with you because I deal with anxiety. And there are times when I am immobile and I'm paralyzed and I cannot even proceed a step because of this whole thing that's going on the inside of me. People don't get it, right? You can call it mental well being, you can call it anxiety, you can call it whatever you want. But at that moment, I am not able, I am disabled. And, I own that. I mean, I don't for me, it's okay for me to say that, right? And what you make a very important point about the baggage that words carry. Words on their own are not the problem. It's the baggage and the intonations that matter. And it boils down to synergies more than exclusion and inclusion. I can see Halcyon is here. Halcyon is joining us all the way from Canada. Halcyon, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Um, I want to go back now. I want to dive back into our conversation about inclusion and integration, right? One of the things I love about your content, Danya, is I get the sense of very enthusiastic inclusion. And I use the word enthusiastic inclusion is because when I read, even before the rare disease, you did this whole week of photographs with your friends with rare disease. The impression I get is you really want people in the mainstream to understand what rare disease is about, what is living with a rare disease is all about. You want that awareness to be there, and therefore you share as much as you can. I want to ask you this question. What does inclusion and integration mean to you?
See, inclusion for me, I would say it's about me telling you that, Rekha, you're organizing an event tomorrow. Let's have persons with disability. Let's have a trans group, all the LGBT, and we get the different groups, whatever is there or labeled, and it's a way that we include everyone as part of the event. But
Yeah.
and integration is where we actually start to participate with it. It's a
Hmm.
process where
Hmm.
you as a person know, like, what, I just met Danya, and I could see this, that she can do it, and see that at least she can, we have that tendency where we learn from something from someone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really feel this is where inclusion and integration plays a role. Like,
Hmm.
we as a parent, or we as a group, we go to a volunteering. One day we go to a Cheshire home, we sit and we come back. We tell them, "Oh, what this is life it is." But beyond that, if they start to have a person with disability, or maybe a trans as a friend, or maybe different gender group, or then when we have a group of intimate relation that happening there, or
Yeah.
connection happening there, there is a lot that we tend to learn and observe
Yeah.
from that. So that's the integration part. Like, I'm so happy that where I could see the differences where my 12-year-old nephew uh, grows up by seeing me, and I can see a 12-year another child growing up from another family, the kind of differences in their
Yeah.
attitude, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's not that the other child doesn't know what inclusion. They
Yeah.
know, okay. I know what I clearly remember this. When I went to a mall recently,
Mm.
I was getting down from the car to the car parking area. So there was another child coming down from the car, the opposite side. And I'm like, Mama, you know what? This is called wheelchair. And they are addressed as persons with disability. So what
Mm.
happened is we taught them what inclusion is and the different kind of people in a society. But
Yeah.
what it means to be with them is something that we have not taught. So that's where inclusion and integration plays. And through which we all learn from each other. There is
Yeah.
a giving and receiving part that plays
Yes.
there. And
Yes.
as I said, people tend to be more empathetic. We
Yes.
kind of get more resilience. If you don't have anxiety and if I don't have my person set of disability, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been so resilient or set of
Yeah.
many things would have been there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't not understand what barriers are. I wouldn't have understand the importance of having a ramp at certain places.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I carelessly walk and go. So
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
where it's very very important. I would say to ensure that every person has a set of group of different kind of friends in
Yeah.
their life because
Yeah.
that's where the journey of inclusion and integration happens.
Yeah. I think also, one of the most important aspects of connecting with people, not just creating space and putting them in that space, but really seeing them as human beings and being able to talk. I think one of the most beautiful things about such interactions is we come to discover that whatever we look like on the face of it, we have the same emotions. Like we feel anger, we feel sadness, we feel happiness, we love to be recognized. We like, that we are all the same under our skins and under whatever we look like. We're all the same, right? And it's so much more enriching for us to have a conversation or interaction when we can connect at that deeper human level, right? I think it just unlocks the humanity to a deeper level. That's what I kind of feel about inclusion, you know.
No,
But yeah, tell me.
absolutely. I completely agree with you. That's where I was coming up from. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, I mean, you've already covered it a little bit, but I would like you to get a little more granular. And just keep in mind that there are a lot of people who are listening who may have no clue about, when we talk about inclusion, like what does it translate into in very real terms? Where would you like to see us as a society, as a country? When I talk about country, I'm talking about India because different countries have different ways of, integrating persons with disabilities into their societies. Where would you like to see us move in terms of being more inclusive?
Just see and accept persons the way they are. That's where I would say the set of normalcy is where I kind of wanting
Yeah,
to see, and more importantly, um, every person should be educated on every aspect,
yeah,
and that is
yeah,
very important, I would say, because I come because I have this by a very handful experience in the disability space. There are people who actually not being able to create an identity because of their own, because
yeah,
of the barriers and all those things
yeah,
they go through. And yet there are people who believe that we are dependent, and that said how what is independent, they doesn't know. And what
yeah,
there are many things, many people believe that independent means having a job and things like that, but
yeah,
I would say it's this inside part that has to grow firstly independent, and then the outer side comes as. So there is this lot of things that has to be put out, and
yeah,
I would love to see uh, our country. in a way where we are all seen and accepted the way we are. Whether I kind of go with my female friend or a male friend, or maybe my brother, or maybe my father or a colleague or anyone, I would like to be accepted the way we are rather than be being judged when it comes to societal place. And of course, as you said, accept these set of emotions, however
Yeah,
we are. And there is a lot when I would say, because the whole simple line where I like to see is how a parent nurture a able child,
yeah,
similarly nurture a child with difference or a
yeah,
person with disability. And
yeah,
let after 18 years, let they take their choices, let they take the move. You have given a value system, and
yeah,
allow them to be independent. And that's
yeah,
where we create a normalcy, I would say.
yeah. Something that often strikes me is because I do have a limited exposure to persons with disabilities in terms of having conversations. And I also, because I work with corporates, I also have that aspect of, interactions. Something I would really love to see are just open hearted conversations where we are really able to talk to each other and say, how do I fully integrate you so that, we create environments and setups and facilities that allow you to live on an everyday basis to your fullest potential. Like right now, I feel that a lot of times somebody has to think, this was something that was shared to me by somebody who had I'm sorry, I forget what it was, but it was somebody who had very limited mobility. And this person said, if I was somebody who had blindness, it would not be very difficult for me to go from point A to point B, because with my cane, with a little bit of help, I can always hop on a bus and I can go. But because I have limited locomotive ability, I have to hire a cab. And then I have to, I need a caregiver. Now, I may have to hire, I may have to ask a caregiver to come in who needs to be paid. So he said, now, the cost difference, the cost of mobility is maybe 10 or 15 times more because of that. And he said, there's no conversation about it. There's zero conversation. So it's entirely the responsible of the person with the disability who has to figure it all out, which is just an added burden. It's an added burden that the person that should not be on people. That's where I come from in terms of when I think about the society and
Maybe
the
I'm adding to this. Imagine
please.
if the same person have a set of friends,
Yeah,
volunteer friends, who
yeah,
comes with the car, who takes care of him.
yes,
We don't require a caretaker. There is no
yes,
extra added. So,
yes,
that's where the integration part plays, like if we have, you know, being nurtured in an
yes,
environment to do things
yes,
we
yes,
like to do without
yes,
judgment, I think
yes,
all these issues are solved there. And I
absolutely.
that I'm so happy that at least you, as you said, the kind of dream that you like and people with disability come up with, and open mind and say. But I still know there are immense people in the community who are afraid to speak because they
Yes,
will feel judged.
yes,
Maybe in the family, or
yes,
because I'm like this, I cannot
yes,
dream of having a life like that.
yes,
Those things happen there. So that's
yes,
where our play actually works. The set of awareness, and
yes,
making each person stronger, helping
yes,
them understand that the importance of volunteering, and lot of
yes.
aspects. Yeah.
Yes. No, I completely agree with what you're saying because, a lot of times I think in the mainstream, people tend to wait for the governments to do things. And while the governments have their job to do, society is made of all of us. We are the people who are constituting the society, and we have such a big role to play in this. We have the capacity to drive demand for infrastructure. We have the capacity to shape change locally within our communities, in our schools, in our colleges. We have that power, but we don't really own it fully, right? So what according to you, I know you've again covered it, but can we get granular and say what can people do to be inclusive at their individual level in the smallest of ways? Like, what are the smallest things that one can do to be inclusive, particularly towards a person with a disability in their everyday lives or whenever they, you know?
So there is two things I would like. There is vision. There are two different visions. As a person with disability, in terms of inclusion, yes, you need to stand for yourself. You need to believe that you are here just like another person, and you too have the same rights just like
Yeah,
anyone else. And
yeah.
just follow what you are meant to do. Understand your abilities and work on
Mm,
it as well, I would say, for persons with disability. And
mm,
also break that set of stigmas. Like, I still remember there is a person from the community who called and said, you know what, I don't like this person coming and nursing me because, like, in the family, maybe a close brother or a father, I don't find it comfortable be coming and doing it, or maybe even the mother part. And they say, having a caretaker is fine. No, that's not. Like try to broaden your thoughts. Like,
yeah,
it's your own family, it's your own friend. But definitely, that's where I say education plays a huge role. We need to
yeah,
know what is right and what is wrong for us, and
yeah,
that's where inclusion starts for persons with disability. That you need to stand for yourself. If you don't,
yeah,
no one else will do that.
yeah,
And from a person, I would say I am a person, whatever I am today, it is because of the voluntary support. So,
yeah,
coming up, it's very beautiful. Like, when you start your education in terms of teaching a person who aspire to learn, or maybe, as I said, taking a person outside who, it's not in a very sympathetic mindset, but in a very compassionate mindset. If you are able to create a relationship in that way, that's
yeah,
where you bring more inclusion. And maybe whatever the kind of things that we are shopping today, maybe
yeah,
from the set of whatever the bags, candles, all these handicrafts are the essential ones for our home. All these can be brought from a community level, which
yeah,
actually encourage another person to
yeah,
gain the livelihood and
yes.
economic independence. Lot of things go there. So it's about we choosing whether we want to be in an inclusive environment or not.
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree with you. And I think that's a very great point you make about supporting and patronizing. When I talk about patronizing, it's in terms of purchasing, making your purchases from organizations that are committed to upholding the independence and dignity of persons with disability, purely by offering them employment opportunities or financial support, right? Financial support and independence, right? So, Dhanya, we're kind of getting to the top of the hour. Before we kind of wind up, anything that you want to share with the audience? What would you like to tell them before we sign out?
Thank you so much for actually being with us today. And yeah, I would like to understand from our audience is that after listening to us, what is inclusion according to you? And how do
Yeah.
you think you can be more inclusive? Or you as a person that has changed?
Yes, I would. I think that's a great question. I can see there are still a few eyeballs.
Even
I can
a
see a
message
bunch of
here.
likes. Please do drop a comment and tell us what does
Yes.
inclusion mean to you? What are your takeaways from this conversation? Because I think it's important. I think it's important for us to distill down the wisdom that we have received from this whole conversation. I can see so many have been sharing comments. And do feel free to share if you want. We're on for a few more minutes. And if you are going to come in and, if you want to reflect upon this and come back, please know you can still comment. Dhanya's tagged on this post, so she can most definitely see it. But please let us start the conversation. Here is one voice who's here to talk. As I've observed Dhanya's content, I've enjoyed her content for many months, and one of the things I really love about the fact is I feel safe to ask questions. I think a lot of us in the mainstream think, oh, can I ask this question? Can I not ask this question? And then we put all these thoughts into our head and say, can we and can we not? The only way to do it is to be extremely loving and ask with love. I think that's the only way forward. So, Dhanya, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very grateful. I'm really, really, really grateful. As I said, you're somebody who inspires me. I see the work you do, and you know, okay. So, Prasanta says, Ramya made a small booklet on inclusion rules, which I will post later. Yes, please do. I think that'll be an interesting read for us and everybody on the feed who come in and catch this conversation later. But we're on top of the hour. Dhanya, thank you very much for joining me. I am, like I said, extremely grateful, and I hope you'll come back soon.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Halcyon says this has been a great conversation. Sorry I joined late, but really appreciate the perspective of relating with compassion and not sympathy. That's a takeaway for me. There you
Yeah.
go, Dhanya.
Thank you so
Answers
much.
are coming. I can,
Makes sense.
I can see you're happy from that smile, and that's a wonderful note for us to close this conversation on. Prasanta, Halcyon, thank you so much for joining us today. I know I speak for Dhanya when I say we appreciate this very, very much. To everybody who's going to be catching this conversation after, because I can see there are about 8 or 9 likes for this conversation. So I know there are people who've been watching. I know there are people who are going to be coming back to listen to this. Do drop in what you think, what comes to you, what are your takeaways from this conversation. Please do drop it in the chat box so that we are, so that it's a collective learning process for all of us. That's where the interdependence of the conversation starts. It starts by speaking out loud. Just so everybody knows, Dhanya's on Facebook, she's on LinkedIn, she's on Instagram. So if you would want to follow her journey, please do follow her. She is an extremely powerful speaker. So if you want to reach out to her for speaking engagements or for any other collaborations or interactions, I think you could reach out to her via social media. She's tagged on all my social posts, so she's easy to access. Thank you very much, everybody. Dhanya, once again, thank you. Take
Thank you
care.
so much. Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend.